Mets are back home after a week of walloping Pittsburgh and the Nats. In 6 games, New York's offense rang up 43 runs and used plenty of power, speed, and clutch hitting to punctuate their most sustained outburst this season. On the mound, El Duque and Mr. 300, a pair of cagey vets who showed no signs of slowing down after a grueling season, led the way. It was a trip that served notice. The push to the playoffs is on, and the Mets are ready. Now the competition stiffens as San Diego brings the National League's top pitching staff to town, and one of their aces will toe the rubber tonight. Mets versus Padres from Shea. It's next on SNY. The Mets' home and road records have been upside down this year. Better on the road than at home. The Mets will try and get a homestand of flower at Shea in the rain as the Padres and Dodgers come calling for a week of West Coast visitation. At Shea Stadium in New York, the New York Mets play the San Diego Padres. This Mets game on SNY is presented in high definition by IO Digital Cable, the leader in HD. Do you see in HD? And a pleasant good evening, everybody, and welcome to Shea Stadium. Gary Cohen, Ron Darling with you tonight on a rainy night. The Mets open a 3-game series against the San Diego Padres, coming off a very successful 5-1 road trip, punctuated by Carlos Beltran, who was named National League Player of the Week.
Boy, he loves hitting in RFK. He does down there in Washington. And the great thing about Beltran, since he's come off the disabled list, I think in that 4 spot, behind right, before Delgado, who's hitting much better now, Beltran is really taking off and just hitting long home runs. He's driving in runs. Player of the week this week. That's the second time this season since early April.
And he provided our Coors Light cold blast, but maybe lost a little bit in the power of Beltran and the sustained consistency of David Wright is the play of Luis Castillo. In his first 3 weeks as a Met, we've seen from Castillo all the elements that have made him a winning player.
Yeah, it looked like when he first came over, Gary, he looked a little nervous, but he has firmly cemented his game now and how he plays the game. Now, occasionally, very occasionally, you'll get a home run from Luis Castillo, hit one right-handed. But his game is defense. His game is getting people over, getting bunt base hits. He has 3 sacrifice bunts already, 3 stolen bases as a Met, and that great defense. 3 times a Gold Glove winner. That play, one of the best plays all season.
Well, the Mets have certainly put together the offense. They've had 8 straight games now in which they've scored 5 or more runs, but all against some of the weaker teams in the league. Now they play the San Diego Padres, the team with the best pitching in the National League.
And you know, if the season ended today, Gary, it would be the Padres in the playoffs against the Mets, and they have the 2 big punches with Peavy and with Young, who's pitching tonight. Young could have at least 15 or 16 wins so far this season, but because of the inability of the Padres to score, he does not. So with him and Peavy both pitching in this series, be tough for Met hitters.
And John Maine trying to rebound. His last 3 starts have been a little bit shaky after a terrific beginning to his season.
Yeah, John Maine, his last start, 8 strikeouts, but he has not had as many swings and misses as he has early in the year. Almost a 6.5 ERA since the All-Star break. He's going to get that better during the course of this month.
So it's John Maine for the Mets. Chris Young goes for the San Diego Padres. Mets and Padres opening a 3-game series at Shea. All the action on SNY. Is brought to you by Barbados, proud sponsor of the New York Mets. Experience the authentic Caribbean. By Nissan, reminding you to visit the Nissan Bottom Line Sales Event before September 4th. By Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% on car insurance. Visit geico.com or call 1-800-947-AUTO. By Hummer, visit Hummer.com to check out the H3 Hummer like nothing else. By City, let's get it done. By Audi, truth in engineering. By Ford, visit your Tri-State Ford dealers today. And by IO Digital Cable, the leaders in HD and presenting sponsor of the Mets in high definition. Do you see in HD? This year, when you can't be home to watch your Mets on SNY or CW11, check out MLB.tv. Watch every out-of-market Mets game of the season live, catch those you missed on demand, or listen to every radio broadcast. Sign up today. Visit Mets.com, where baseball is always on. Time to check out our Jeep around the majors. The Cardinals salvaged the finale of their series against the Cubs. They're now 3 back in the Central. The Angels, on Ryan Buddy's RBI double in the bottom of the 10th, beat the Yankees last night. And Mark Teixeira, for the second straight game, hit 2 home runs as the Braves beat the Reds. The Braves and Phillies both now 5 games in back of the Mets.
Tim Hudson has now put himself with his 15th win, 15th and 5 now for Tim Hudson.
Well, there's the newest Met, Jeff Conine, just acquired in a deal for 2 minor leaguers yesterday to replace the injured Damian Easley as a right-handed bat off the bench in uniform wearing number 28. Carlos Delgado back in the lineup tonight after missing 4 games with a knee injury. Carlos and the Mets facing the Padres. Chance to be a part of the pennant race at Shea. Secure your option to purchase tickets for all potential postseason home games and lock in your season ticket location for 2008. Get to Mets.com or call 718-507-TEAM. Throwing 117 pitches in 5 innings. And here's your Ford Padres lineup. The Padres, the second lowest scoring team in the National League. Adrian Gonzalez, 20 home runs for the 2nd straight year. Jeff Blum has supplanted Marcus Giles as the everyday second baseman. Marcus just hasn't been hitting, but his brother Brian has. He's been on fire since the All-Star break, hitting at the leadoff spot for San Diego.
The plate.
Weather. Meanwhile, the Padres with the wild card lead, very tightly bunched with 5 teams right behind them.
I believe this could be a good test for the Mets because the Mets are going against 2 of the fine pitchers in the National League, and Young tonight and Peavy, of course, on Thursday. That's what would happen if the season ended today, if they played the Padres.
Well, here's Brian Giles, who not only has been hitting, but has been hitting some home runs recently, which appeared to have fallen out of his repertoire this year. He had just 2 home runs until just recently before going on a tear. And he takes a strike, 1-1 to Giles. 61 degrees at game time, wind blowing in at about 15 miles an hour, and a misting rain blowing around the ballpark as Giles takes the changeup low, 2-1. John Maine, over his last 3 starts, has an earned run average of 10.38. You'd like to turn that around in a hurry. And he misses outside, and it's 3-1 to Giles. Jeff Blum, who had a game-winning hit against the Mets the last time they played the Padres in San Diego, on deck. Giles breaks his bat and fouls it off, and it's 3-2. Mets lost 2 out of 3 to the Padres in San Diego. Maine pitched the last game of that series, which wound up being a loss for Joe Smith. Remember, he gave up a game-winning hit to Blum, who has been hitting ever since and has stayed in the lineup in the wake of that hit, which came just about a month ago.
Well, Marcus Giles just having a nightmare season.
So the Giles brothers have been going in opposite directions lately. Padres in their sand-colored road uniforms. 3-2, right down the middle, strike 3 call. With Giles down looking for the first out of the night.
Well, Brian Giles, who can work a walk, thinks this ball is up and away, but close enough, of course, not to take, as home plate umpire Angel Hernandez punches him out.
So 1 out and nobody on for Maine, who, as Ronnie mentioned, fanned 8 in 5 innings in his last start. And here is Blum. When he got the game-winning hit against Joe Smith a month ago, he was hitting .211. So you see Blum has raised his batting average more than 50 points since then, and that's earned him more playing time. Switch hitter, and he takes it low from Maine, 2-0. Milton Bradley returning to the lineup for San Diego tonight. He's been hurt a lot. 2-1 to Blum. Bradley hasn't started a game since the 3rd of August. Didn't go on the disabled list this time, but he's been on the DL 3 times already this year. As Blum fouls it off, 2-2.
He's been that kind of player his entire career, hasn't he, Gary? Just one of those guys that will put up some good numbers in short stretches and then will spend 8 to 10 games not playing.
They got him from Oakland. He almost immediately went on the disabled list with an oblique injury, came back, tore it up for a while. Blum hits one foul. And, you know, when the Mets were in San Diego, Milton Bradley was swinging the hottest stick in their lineup. Bud Black, the first-year manager of the Padres, has his team in second place in the National League West, 3.5 games behind Arizona. 2-2 to Blum. And another foul ball, which was the currency of John Maine's last start in Pittsburgh. As you look at the 342 game winner Greg Maddux, who got a victory for San Diego against Houston on Sunday. Maine had 34 foul balls against him in his last start in Pittsburgh. That's an extraordinary number. And another one.
Remember that start he had last year where El Duque was supposed to start, and he became the emergency starter because they did not want to waste El Duque and his 40-year-old legs in a start where maybe it was rained out, and he just proceeded to pitch his first career shutout.
And Blum takes it low and in, 3-2. Jeff Blum, journeyman player who had one shining moment with the White Sox 2 years ago, a game-winning homer in the World Series. It gets under one to right field, and Millage is there. Wind is blowing in tonight. It's going to be hard to hit anything out of the ballpark as Blum flies out for the second out.
As they say in the clubhouse, you're going to have to be a man to hit the ball out of this ballpark tonight.
It is just it's not a very pleasant night to be at the ballpark. It's cold and clammy, and not what you'd expect on the 21st of August. Things should get better as the week goes along, but the fans who have come tonight have come prepared. Here's Bradley, the switch hitter, and he takes a strike. Bradley hitting .326 for the year, .355 since being traded to San Diego.
That's a third straight changeup that Maine has missed with. That's a pitch that's difficult to throw in an evening like this. Cold, hard to grip the ball. Mike DeFelice, what a job he's done. I love the way he calls the game. Gets nice and low with that low target.
And Bradley takes it low, and it's 2-1.
I did not do the games. I was not with you guys, but he had some interesting trips around the bases, did Mike DeFelice.
He did. Third base was his stumbling block, as it were. Now, he did arrive safely with a triple at third base in Washington. Bradley fouls it off, 3-2.
What did I ask you when we came to the game today? I did not get to see that triple. So I said, okay, tell me about the Mike DeFelice triple. How did he get one?
Nobody fell down, but the ball did take an awkward bounce in the right field corner away from Austin Kearns. 2 out and nobody on, 3-2 to Milton Bradley. And he walked him. So Bradley aboard with a 2-out walk. And here's Adrian Gonzalez. Gonzalez hit over 300 last year, and his average not quite as high this year. He's been striking out more, but he does have 20 home runs, which, playing in that ballpark in San Diego, is pretty impressive.
Yeah, 2 years in a row now. 24 home runs last year, only the 12th Padre to do it back-to-back. But not a good sign for Maine, who averaged 23.5 pitches per inning in his last start. First 3 hitters, 3-2 counts on each.
21 pitches total to those 3 batters, so the foul ball retinue is continuing. We mentioned 34 foul balls in his last start as Gonzalez takes a strike. It's the most by a Met pitcher in 4 years. Al Leiter had 36 foul balls in a game in Philadelphia in 2003, and you know, Al, at the end of his career, that's what he was. He was a guy who couldn't quite put hitters away and got tons of foul balls. Taken low by Gonzalez, 1-1.
Well, that just, to me, that just tells me that John's stuff is just not where it was in the beginning of the season. That can happen in the dog days. It might be a little better at night because it's a little cooler, but he's always had the ability to put hitters away, not able to in that last game. It just gets so frustrating. You're out there and you make a pitch, and sometimes you got to tip your hat off to the hitters, but in some cases it's just not making the pitch that you want to.
Gonzalez hit a home run against Maine in his start against the Padres a month ago. He's late on the fastball, 1-2.
And also, I don't know if you noticed in the first inning, watch this big swing by Gonzalez. That's something that you didn't see in the beginning of the year off John, because I think he did a lot more work inside to right-handers and left-handers, making them aware of the inside part of the plate, almost like teeing off on that fastball.
Bradley just coming back from a hamstring injury. Not very likely that he'd be stealing bases, particularly on a wet track tonight. Interesting that both teams have players coming back off leg injuries in the lineup tonight despite the poor conditions. Bradley for the Padres and Delgado for the Mets. 1-2 to Gonzalez. There is a lot of leaking. Oh, and backwards leaking going on here at Shea.
You know you're never supposed to put your hands up on a tent or anything like that, right? When there's water on it.
1-2 to Gonzalez. Struck him out with a changeup. John Maine with a couple of strikeouts in the opening inning. It took him 26 pitches to get there, but he throws up a 0. Jose Reyes gets set to lead off against Chris Young in the bottom of the first. Back in there tonight after missing 4 games.
Well, Chris Young having an amazing year. He's first in the ERA with that 1.93. He's only given up 84 hits in 130 2/3 innings. 1.86 ERA at night. That's number 1.
Reyes sitting at 3.01, and he takes a strike, 1-1. What jumps out at me about Chris Young is that last year he gave up 28 home runs. This year he's given up 4 home runs. In the air to center field, and Mike Cameron is there, and again the wind is blowing in. Reyes hit it solidly, but Cameron makes the grab 1 away. And Young is a fly ball pitcher who doesn't give up home runs.
The second baseman.
Yeah, I think one of the things about him is he doesn't throw that hard. But if we look quickly at the Rico Padres defense, Kozmanov at third base has kept Ensberg, former Astro, on the bench. Bard, of course, catching maybe a break tonight in this bad weather. He's only thrown out 8 of 75 would-be base stealers. It's Chris Young, who he has that short arm action, kind of surprises you. He is a radar gun specialist because he does not throw that hard. 81 miles an hour with a fastball. You'll see where he'll throw 85, 86, but he hides it. And I believe one of the latest, sharpest breaking sliders in baseball.
Luis Castillo takes up out of the strike zone, and it's 2-0. One thing that Chris Young cannot do, and you mentioned Bard, he cannot hold runners on base. Opposing base stealers are 29 for 29 against him this year, and if the Mets can get on, they'll certainly try and take advantage of that, wet track or no wet track.
Yeah, with those 84 hits, he doesn't have a lot of people on, but that's something you have to take advantage of with Chris Young, because it's hard to group hits together against him.
He's just so tall and long. 6'10". He was a terrific basketball player at Princeton, as you look at David Wright on deck. And he could have played in the NBA had he so desired. He was going to be a second-round draft pick. Castillo draws a 1-out walk, and we'll see whether Castillo decides to test Young quickly and that little chink in his armor as far as holding runners on. As Wright comes up, red hot with the bat.
Well, Castillo, 3 stolen bases, hasn't been thrown out as a Met yet. And I think he'll try to take advantage, get in scoring position for Wright, who's having some kind of second half, Gary.
Well, David has been on base at least twice in 10 straight games. As you look at the stolen base numbers against Young, they're 70 for 74 against him the last 2 years, 29 for 29 this year. Castillo not going, and Wright takes low and inside. David has got his season on base percentage up to 400. That's 9th in the league. He's 7th in the league in runs scored, 9th in walks. He's hitting .312. He's just little by little putting together a tremendous year. And he takes it at the knees, 1-1.
A MVP type year. I mean, he'd have to continue on this path, but Beltran, who came off that great series against Washington, continue the way he's been playing, but just coming up with big hits for the Mets.
Castillo trying to get his footing as he takes the lead.
Well, a bad combination for Young, and why base stealers have been so adept at him is that he's slow to the plate and he has a bad move to first. So that combo is going to make it hard for the catcher Bard.
And a close play as Castillo gets the hand back in. You know, is there any way for a pitcher that tall to shorten his delivery to home plate and get it there quicker?
I don't think so. Like, I was thinking about that today when we saw the notes, and I think if you're a pitching coach, there's not much you can do with a guy that's 6'10".
Right fouls it back. He had a good cut at that fastball, 1-2.
I think what happens, Gary, is that he just needs, needs to unfurl that big body. And good base running by Castillo, who's a pro's pro, knows how to play. Doesn't get back really as quick as he wants to, but you go to the back of the base. That's 6 inches of difference between Gonzalez tagging the front of the bag and the back of the bag allowed him to be safe.
Now it's 1-2 to right with Beltran on deck. And Young doing the best he can to keep Castillo close to the bag.
Well, a slippery track does 2 things. It makes it more difficult for the runner to try to get a break and steal second, but it also makes it difficult for them to get back to first, as they sometimes lose their footing going back to the bag.
Castillo several times during this sequence has been kicking at that dirt trying to gain traction. The color of that infield dirt has already changed. It's gotten darker since the game began. It had actually stopped raining before the game, but it's been raining since we started. In the dirt, gets away from Bard, and down to second base goes Luis Castillo. After all that effort to try and keep Castillo close, the wild pitch moves him up.
Well, 5th wild pitch from Young. Bard also has a couple of pass balls. You can see why that technique is not your best. You want to get down on your knees, and he kind of lifted his head to avoid that ball. You got to do just the opposite. You have to get on your knees and chin down. Teach all catchers chin down. 2 reasons. 1, it won't hit you in the throat, and 2, it means your head is on the ball.
Well, remember why Josh Bard is here. He's here because he couldn't catch Tim Wakefield's knuckleball in Boston, and they dealt him here for Doug Mirabelli, who could. And Wright takes the breaking ball in for a call, strike 3, and Young has the second out of the inning.
Well, I talked about his sharp breaking slider. This one starts out right down the middle, straight down, just surprises Wright on that inside corner.
So 2 away. Castillo still at second, and here's Beltran, named National League Player of the Week for his effort in the last week. 2 home runs on Sunday solidified that. He's been killing it since he came off the disabled list, and Young drops the ball, and that's not the first time that's happened to him. It's a balk that moves Castillo to third. Young has got huge hands. He's a basketball player, and he grips the ball so loosely that at times he will actually drop it just like this in his delivery.
Well, the other thing he does also, Gary, and you got it right, he holds it loose, but he always taps his glove and his hand to his knee in the set position, and when he taps it to his knee, sometimes he jars the ball loose.
That's his 4th balk of the season, and they've mostly come that way. Now Beltran takes off the plate, 1-0. Carlos now with 24 home runs. He's hit 5 of them in 9 games since coming off the disabled list. 13 RBIs in those 9 games. In the air to left field. Back goes Bradley near the wall, and it's out of here! Carlos Beltran with an opposite field 2-run homer. Beltran getting into one of those grooves. Only the 5th home run allowed this year by Chris Young, and only the 2nd in his last 18 starts. Beltran takes him deep. It's 2-0 New York.
Well, you know that he is on top of his game when he's able to hit this pitch on the outside corner and up, and not try to pull it, go the other way, have enough power to hit it against the wind up into the grandstands.
Number 25 for Carlos Beltran, and 6 in 10 games since coming off the disabled list. Carlos Delgado returning to the lineup tonight, swings at the first pitch he sees. Bard has to get around Delgado to make the catch, and that ends the inning. Would have been interesting to see if Carlos would have been called for interference had that ball not been caught. Beltran, though, with the opposite field 2-run shot, getting the Mets off to another fast start. It's 2-0 New York. John Maine staked to a 2-0 lead in his last start. The Mets got 5 runs for him in the first inning.
Well, you know, you think of third base coaches, all they do is wave runners in, give the signs. But here is Sandy Alomar talking to Angel Hernandez, and what he's talking about is Chris Young has a great vantage point at that third base coaching box to watch the move of Chris Young to first base. And Chris Young, he is telling him that he's just spinning and throwing. See how he's spinning and throwing, not stepping? That jump move is considered by many a balk move.
Mike Cameron lifts one to center field, and Beltran drifting back through the raindrops makes the grab. Cameron retired, 1 away. Well, Sandy knows from having observed pitchers and their moves for the better part of 60 years.
Well, watch, he just jumps. See, he jumps around, that back foot ends up behind the mound. And I know why Sandy was talking about that, because Sandy's done it to me before. When he's the third base coach for San Diego, I know that he always had an issue with the way my move was to first base.
Khalil Green hooks one foul, and it's 0-1. And you know, you plant that seed and you never know how it might come to fruition later.
Well, it might not even be in the regular season. It could be in the postseason.
Green having a rough year at the plate, hitting just .237. His on-base percentage is just .273, which is awfully low for an everyday player. But he does have 19 home runs. And he waves at the slider. It's 1-2.
He does not have the defensive skills of Kevin Elster. Reminds me a lot of Kevin Elster, the way he plays offensively. Kind of a hit or miss kind of guy.
Fouls that off the end of the bat. By the way, Carlos Beltran's home run was his 3rd in his last 3 at-bats. Sunday in Washington, his last 3 plate appearances, home run, walk, home run. So a home run his first time up today. That's 3 in a row in terms of at-bats, and the major league record is 4. Fouled away. Earlier this year, David Wright also had homers in 3 straight at-bats back on May 19th and 20th. I've told this story before, but 1997, the Mets, first year of interleague play, played in Detroit and were mauled in a series by the Tigers. As Green lines one into left field for a hit. The first base hit off John Maine. In that series, Bobby Higginson had 4 home runs in 4 at-bats and came up with a chance to set a major league record. 5 home runs in 5 at-bats. And he took a call third strike.
What? Well, that kind of was Higgy anyway. He was kind of a free spirit, if there ever was one.
Not a free swinger in that at-bat. Rain just
he was out with that bad side that you kind of take him for granted sometimes. How much ground he covers. You know, he's had the corner outfielders of Alou and Green most of the year, and you know, see him right there, pause for a second. That big swing by Kuzminov kind of fooled him a little, but even when he's full, just that great athletic ability, able to make up for it.
So here's Josh Barrett, the number 8 hitter, the switch hitting catcher, hitting a .258. The play that he made in the 9th inning of that game, the Mets hung on to win. In fact, Maine's last start,
Pittsburgh,
right, and going from right center to left center to catch the ball near the 410 mark. That was covering a ton of ground.
Well, if he doesn't make that play, that might have been 2 ugly games for the Mets, because the next night, in fact, was an ugly one.
That's that bookend game. They scored 5 in the first, 5 in the 9th, and they had to hang on to win. Jose Bautista hit that shot off Billy Wagner that Beltran ran down. 1-0 to Bard. On the ground, and a nice hop for Castillo. And that puts an end to the inning. So John Maine, with some help from Carlos Beltran, puts the Padres to rest in the second. Moises Alou up to lead off in the bottom. Your chance to win a Mets game time watch like the one Willie Randolph wears. Remember, stay tuned for the results later in tonight's game. What do you think? Should players be required to sign autographs?
Well, I don't know. I always think of this, that you always should consider it your first autograph. Every time you sign one, it makes it a lot easier. Required? I don't know.
I mean, most players do sign autographs. The question is how long you're going to stand there and sign autographs. Moises Alou lines one to left field, falling in for a base hit. And Alou now has an 11-game hitting streak. A leadoff single here in the bottom of the second.
Well, obviously, they have not FedExed the hitting tape of Moises Alou to the Padres, because every single time you go up and in, he is just so quick. That's a pitch, really, Gary, that not many hitters can handle. And they keep going up and into him, and he just, if they do that, he'll hit 450 the rest of the season.
At age 41, Alou has shown no signs of slowing down when healthy. And that was the question about him from the beginning of the season. From back in spring training, we talked about Alou as Millage fouls off the bunt attempt, and how important a bat he can be in this lineup, regardless of his age, as long as he can stay in the lineup. Now, he missed 2.5 months, but since coming back, it's like he hasn't missed a beat.
Well, for you fans that love old baseball, Carl Yastrzemski was one of the best players ever to play for the Red Sox. That's one thing he retained even to the end of his career, was his ability to hit a fastball. They said when he was 43 years old, he could still turn on one. Same for Alou.
How about Paul Molitor?
Paul Molitor, yeah. He did some damage against
And
me.
another guy who had so many injuries over the course of his career that, you know, he wound up getting 3,000 hits, getting to the Hall of Fame, but could have been even better, could have had even better numbers.
He could have better numbers, but he was lucky that Mike DeFelice on deck, he didn't miss as many games when he was injured because he could DH in that American League.
Right. 1-2 to Millage, and Alou back to the bag. Angel Hernandez calling the balls and strikes in short sleeves on a chilly night. 1-2 to Millage. Slider hit to second, might be two. Blum with a backhand feed to Green. 4-6-3 double play. So 2 out and nobody on. Well, we talked about Alou's injuries. He certainly has not been the only one this year. The Mets have had so many disabling injuries this year to position players over the course of the season. And then you've got this group currently on the disabled list. Andy Chavez could be back by the end of the week. He's been doing very well during his rehab assignment in St. Lucie as DeFelice takes a strike. Paul Lo still at least a week away.
Well, it's just part of the game, but I have never seen in baseball where you lose both catchers, your first and second string, at the same time.
On back-to-back days. Lo gets hurt one day, Castro gets hurt the next day. And so the Mets with the catching tandem now of Mike DeFelice and Sandy Alomar for the short term, and they've both done a terrific job.
I bet in that clubhouse that Mr. Castro gets ribbed a lot for that. Oh, you lasted 3 whole innings. Way to go.
And Sandy Alomar Jr. DeFelice just gets a piece to keep the at bat alive.
Sandy Alomar, when he was in AAA, was being held out of some games because, one, he was not feeling great. He was a little injured. But secondly, they do not want him to get injured in the game, so he's held out of the games in case the Mets needed him, and they did.
In fact, they flew him to Pittsburgh, didn't get activated there, flew him back to New Orleans where he didn't play, then flew him to Washington to finally get activated as DeFelice goes down on a pitch in the dirt, and that's the second strikeout for Chris Young. So the Mets are done in the bottom of the second. John Maine will go back to the mound for the third with a 2-0 lead. Third, the Mets with a 2-0 lead on the strength of a Carlos Beltran 2-run homer. Well, there is a Chris Young in the National League West who can hit. This is not him. Chris Young is hitting .061 this year. The other Chris Young with Arizona has done a tremendous job for the first place Diamondbacks.
That is why I'll never be a scout. When we saw him in the first trip through in Arizona, he looked overmatched and has just turned it around.
Now, he hasn't hit for a high average, but he hits home runs, he steals bases, and he makes all the plays in center field. And the Diamondbacks are really a unique case in that they've been outscored this year by a substantial margin, yet they're 16 games over 500 as, lo and behold, the other Chris Young can hit. Beltran cuts it off, and he'll hold the 6'10" Young to a leadoff single, just his third hit of the year. Well, last night down in Port St. Lucie, Pedro Martinez made his third rehab start, and a very successful one with Rick Peterson looking on. Guy Conti was there as well to observe as Pedro threw 5 innings against Florida State League competition.
Well, you see that whip around there. He really is exerting himself much more than he did in his first couple of starts. 72 pitches, 52 strikes. That's what he's done, honestly, every single start. His ability to throw strikes have been great, and just the 2 unearned runs, of course.
Well, Pedro has never been through this before, and so he's still feeling his way through the process. Probably will have a couple more rehab starts to make before he's ready to come to New York. Here's Brian Giles, who takes ball 1. And this is what Pedro had to say after his stint last night.
I had a hard time getting that sinker over to roll over, and actually adding and subtracting velocity on it was hard for me at first. But now I'm more on top of my legs, and I'm able to correct those things and got the ground balls when I wanted it. And you know, I'm very pleased with the way everything went. I still have to work in some of the pitches and the consistency of it, but everything is so far pretty good.
3-0 to Brian Giles, and he takes a strike. You know, it's not easy for anybody to come back from surgery and feel 100% confident. You hear a little bit in Pedro's voice that he's not maybe as demonstratively confident as he was before he started this rehab pitching process.
Well, as Brian Giles walks there off John Maine, I think that there's a couple things working there. One, listening to him say that he's working on his sinker is a sign for me. That tells me that at some point he doesn't feel as great about that four-seamer and ability to blow people away. And I think, secondly, he's a very proud person, Pedro. And I think if he's going to come back, he wants to come back and be able to help this ball club. It's a club in first place, and I know that when he wants to come and help them, not hurt them. So I think that's where some of the uneasiness comes from. I think that's where some of the lack of confidence comes from, because he wants to come back as proud Pedro Martinez, a guy that every time he takes the hill, your team is going to win. I don't think he feels like that right now.
What you're saying is his standards are very high.
Yes.
Jeff Blum takes a strike, and it's 1-1. And you know, when he comes back, whenever that is, the fact of the matter is that people are going to expect him to be Pedro Martinez, and he understands that. He doesn't want to come back as something less than what he left as, which was in many ways the savior of this franchise. I mean, he was the guy who, when the Mets signed him, started the ball rolling on getting them to be a championship caliber team. Blum hits it off the end of the bat. Reyes will have to hurry. Castillo hit hard, can't make the throw on target, and safe at first is Blum. Well, those Giles boys always come in hard at second base, and Brian did a good job of taking out Castillo to prevent the double play.
But the smart Castillo, he uses the bag between him and Giles, and that makes Giles have to slide over the bag, making it a little more difficult for Giles to take him out. And Castillo's already shown with some great plays that he will stand in there, he will complete the double play, even if it's a little late. Boy, what a slide by Giles.
So now first and third and 1 out, and Milton Bradley the batter. Giles getting congratulations, and rightly so, from his teammates. This is a San Diego team that has great pitching, but not a lot of offense, and they've got to do things like that if they're going to be successful, first getting to the postseason, and then when they get there, if they do. Down to first, past Delgado into right field, a base hit. That brings Young home with the first San Diego run. Blum stops at second. Milton Bradley with an RBI single, and now the Met lead is 2-1.
Well, Delgado off the bag and out of the reach of Carlos Delgado. This is a ball that off the bat I thought was going to be a chance for a double play, but just eluded Delgado at first base.
Carlos coming back from 4 games on the sidelines with a hyperextended knee and playing on a slow track, and you don't get that much range from Delgado even at the best of times. So that ball gets through, and Bradley has his 23rd RBI and a successful return for him from 2 weeks on the sidelines as Adrian Gonzalez takes a strike. So the pitcher, Chris Young, getting it started with just his 3rd hit of the year. Strange doings for Young. He gives up a home run, which he almost never does, and he gets a hit, which he almost never does. And Gonzalez takes a good fastball for a strike, and it's 0-2. We were talking about the Padres and their offense. Second to last, only Washington has scored fewer runs in the National League. Gonzalez struck out his first time up. He's already fanned 109 times this year. It's a foul. Last year he had just 113 strikeouts for the whole season, so he's striking out at a much faster rate this year.
And he had such a good year last year, as you see the weather continuing to come in. He had such a good year last year that I think the ears of the pitchers in the National League peaked up a little bit and said, hey, this is the real good offensive threat for this team. Have to be careful with him.
0-2 to Gonzalez. In the air to left center field. It's hit well. Back goes out Lou, right back near the fence. He's got it. The ball got knocked down a little bit by the wind, I think, which is interesting because Beltran's ball hit to a similar part of the ballpark seemed to get a boost. That one didn't.
Well, a little circuitous route here by Lou as he does the karaoke to get back there to catch that ball. See that movement by Moises? Pretty spry for a 41-year-old.
So 2 out and 2 on, and here's Mike Cameron, who hit one well to center field that Beltran caught his first time up. And Cameron takes a slider low. In Philadelphia, the Dodgers lead the Phillies 3-1 in the bottom of the 3rd. Phillies just getting on the board on a Carlos Ruiz RBI double. Russell Martin has a home run for the Dodgers tonight. Brett Tomko against Kyle Kendrick, so you figure there might be a few more runs scored there tonight. Meanwhile, the Braves lead the Reds 3-0 in the 3rd in another bandbox in Cincinnati. 2-0 to Cameron. Swung and missed the slider, 2-1. The bad news for the Braves tonight, Chuck James was supposed to pitch. He's on the disabled list now after giving up 4 home runs in his last start, and they're starting JoJo Reyes in his place tonight. Philly and Atlanta each 5 games behind the Mets. 2-1 to Cameron. And he stays with the slider, and it's 2-2.
Well, it used to be spawn and sane and pray for rain. They're going to have to come up with one for Hudson and Smokes. Has another good slider from Johnny Maine. He threw one on the 2-1 count and backed it up with another one to Cameron.
So a small, wet but lively crowd urging Maine on. Slider Cameron managed to lay off. 3-2. Khalil Green waiting on deck. So now with 2 down, the runners will be in motion. Blum at second and Bradley at first. Foul back. After all those sliders, it came with a 3-2 fastball.
Yeah, a lot of 3-2 counts for John Maine early in this game. Pitch count already up to 63. And Cameron, very dangerous hitter. You know, you look at Mike Cameron, you say, well, he's only hitting 249. He's one of those guys, though, if you get into a 3-2 count where you have to throw a fastball, very dangerous.
Well, we know how strong he is. 3-2, and he missed ball 4, and the bases are loaded. So Maine loses Cameron to a walk. That's his 3rd walk in the first 3 innings. And again, Willie Randolph watching Maine's pitch count rise. Remember the last start, he threw 117 pitches in 5 innings. And he's headed in that direction again.
Well, his last 13 innings coming into this game, John had walked 9 batters. And that's something that he had trouble with early in the season with the bad weather, but had tamed that during the middle part.
Gets ahead of Green with a slider. The low Green single to left his first time up. Bases loaded, 2 down, 2-1 New York, third inning. And Green bounces one slowly foul, and it's 0-2. In the first half of the season, John Maine pitched like an all-star, even though he didn't make the all-star team. Since the all-star break, it's been a different story.
You know, it's interesting tonight. A lot of times, John Maine, who's a guy who doesn't shake off his catcher very much, usually when it's LaDuca, it's not shaking off DeFelice, who's calling an exorbitant amount of sliders, which you usually don't see from John Maine.
Rolled over to short. Reyes throws to second, gets the force play on Cameron, and that puts an end to the inning. So Maine gives up 1 run. We go to the bottom of the third. The Mets with a 2-1 lead.
Oh, Mike DeFelice gives you a lot of different looks behind the plate. See that glove? He's trying to let Green know he might go upstairs, and then he'll move inside on Green to fake like fastball inside, back to the outside of that low target, and Green rolls over on that slider. Very active catcher is Mike DeFelice.
John Maine leads off and takes a strike from Chris Young. Well, you talked about Maine throwing more sliders with DeFelice behind the plate. If you're John Maine and you've been so reliant on your high fastball, as Maine lines a base hit, and so each pitcher has a hit their first time up. That's John's 5th hit of the year. And the Mets get the leadoff man on for the 2nd straight inning. Why would you give in so readily to a catcher who you haven't worked with before in terms of his pitch call?
I think a lot of it has to do with DeFelice as a veteran catcher. I think John Maine is at the point in his career right now where he doesn't want to think as much about the kind of pitches he's going to throw back to back. He wants to think more about executing the pitches. But we used to always kid that sometimes catchers would call what they didn't really like to hit. And so far, DeFelice has a lot of threes going down there with the slider.
Reyes takes up and in from Young, 1-0.
There's Michael.
Well, DeFelice is a catcher that all the pitchers seem to respect greatly. Reyes pops one up. A little Green with the angle. And he can't get it. Was it the raindrops? Did he hear footsteps? Did he think he was running out of room? But he backed off at the last moment.
The last homestand for the Mets. This happened to Jose Reyes on a similar pop-up down the left field line. He shied away once he got close, and I don't know whether the tarp or something.
The way he turned his head, it was almost as though he thought Bradley was coming, but Bradley really wasn't even close. So Reyes gets a break, and Young misses high, 2-1. So I'm looking at John Maine standing at first base wearing a jacket, and I'm thinking to myself, you always told me you'd never wear a jacket on the bases. As Reyes pops another one up, and Green will try and find this one through the raindrops. The wind carrying it, but he's got it, 1 away. Is this a night when you might have given in to wear a jacket?
No, well, and sorry, Charlie, I know you did a lot of work. The Mets jackets, warm-up jackets, were not pretty. They weren't great. So that, you got to look good too.
So it was a fashion thing.
No, it was a fashion thing also. And no, I was told by Rusty Staub early in my career, I used to run for him occasionally. Well, not occasionally, all the time, because he used to get base hit after base hit when he was a pinch hitter. And he said, if you ever embarrass me by wearing a jacket on those bases.
But it's different when you're a pinch runner, right?
It is. It's just a, you just felt like a player when you're out there without a jacket on. I understand the guys having jackets on because 95% of the guys do, but you can't tell me you can run as quickly with a jacket on as it off.
Don't you remember Dae-Sung Koo?
Well, he was so fast he tried to weigh himself down.
I mean, not only did he wear a jacket, he wore a weighted ball in his pocket as he doubled off Randy Johnson and raced home from second on a bunt.
He just knew what a bad hitter he was. He just never thought he'd ever be on base.
Unfortunately, he also hurt his arm diving into home plate and never really pitched again. 3-0 to Castillo as Young is having trouble finding the strike zone. He walked Castillo his first time up.
Castillo is one thing I like about him at the plate just seems so relaxed, doesn't he, when he takes pitches? And he could go 0-2 and doesn't really change the at-bat. Some guys you see 0-2 and they kind of panic and they grip that bat tighter. Not Castillo.
Terrific 2-strike hitter. Once had a 35-game hitting streak while playing with the Marlins. You don't do that by accident. 3-0 the count, taking all the way, and it's ball 4. I think Castillo, Bard, and Young all thought it was a strike, but Angel Hernandez saw it differently.
Well, Hernandez had a big strike zone early. Remember that strikeout of Giles? That ball is the same pitch that Brian Giles struck out to lead off the game for the Padres, and Bud Black, who's a former pitcher, is getting bitter.
Second walk given up by Young. Let's check in with Kevin Burkhardt. Kevin?
You know, guys, Jeff Conine is here today, the newest man. I don't think there's any question he's going to fit in with this team. Just talking to some of the guys, Tom Glavine said the term professional hitter applies. He said all the times I faced him, he's never gotten himself out. Then he talked to Moises Alou, a former teammate with the '97 Marlins, those champions. There's a pop-up here by right that Gonzalez puts away for the second out of the inning. But Alou said, you know what? First of all, he knows his role. Second of all, he's a leader, which I kind of thought was interesting. And Ronnie, I'm curious to know your take. Can you be a leader when you come to this type of team in August?
Oh, you absolutely can, because in your career you have over 1,000 RBIs. That means you got a lot of clutch hits. He's batted over 300 in postseason games. Yeah, absolutely come late, and he's well respected. And in this Florida North of the New York Mets, they have all these ex-Marlins. Conine fit in really well.
Mets now have 8 former Marlins on the squad as Beltran fouls it back. Beltran with a 2-run opposite field home run his first time up. His 25th of the year, so he's now had homers in 3 straight official at-bats. Maine at second, Castillo at first with 2 down. And the Reds have tied up the Braves 3-3 in the third. A lot of runs scored in that ballpark. Beltran fouls it away. And I think it's also important to note that Conine, you know, he won the World Series with the Marlins in '97 and wound up being known as Mr. Marlin. He was there right from the beginning, but then he went away. But he came back at the trading deadline in '03, actually the August 31st deadline in '03, and not only won another World Series with the Marlins, but he had a tremendous postseason for them that year and really was a leader on that team, despite the fact that he was only there for a month. Beltran drives one to deep right center field. Giles going back. He won't get it. It short hops the wall. Maine scores. Castillo digs around third. He heads for the plate. Blum's relay throw well offline. It's a 2-run double for Carlos Beltran. Beltran with another 4 RBI night. And the Mets have a 4-1 lead against the pitcher with the lowest ERA in the majors.
Well, Chris Young made a mistake on the pitch before. Again, 2 in a row, trying to come inside to Beltran. That ball drifts back over the middle of the plate and up in the strike zone, just where he likes it. And the only reason this stayed in the ballpark because he hit it so much on the line. 1 hop. And even Giles, who played it well, could not catch the Luis Castillo, who can turn it up a notch when he's on the bases.
So his home run streak ends at 3 straight at bats. He gets a mere 2-run double as Carlos Delgado takes high. So Beltran had 4 RBIs on Sunday, 4 more RBIs tonight. He now has 79 to tie him with David Wright for the club lead. Delgado fouled out to the catcher his first at bat. And Chris Young, maybe a little rattled, falls behind on Delgado 2-0.
Well, you see the extra base hits, boy, 52. And he is getting rattled out there, Gary. Chris Young, he's upset at umpire Angel Hernandez in his strike zone.
2-0 to Delgado, and he pops it up. Third baseman Kuzminov coming in toward the plate, and he staggers but makes the catch to end the inning. But Carlos Beltran putting on a show, coming off his National League Player of the Week honors, a 4 RBI night and a 4-1 Mets lead. Could be the difference as far as the race is concerned. Tomorrow's starters for the next Mets game on SNY. It'll be Brian Lawrence for the Mets. Jake Peavy will go for the Padres. Don't miss all the action on SNY as the Mets drive to the pennant, brought to you by your local Tri-State Mazda dealers. First pitch to Kevin Kuzminov, and caught by Lastings Village. 1 pitch and 1 out
in the top of the fourth.
And Maine could use a couple of one-pitch, one-outs in this inning here.
Well, facing the lower third of the order, now takes on the number 8 hitter Josh Bard. Carlos Beltran is getting into one of those modes where he's just making the game look easy.
Yeah.
And we've seen this before from Carlos, most notably last year, where really the first 5 months of the season he had an MVP type season. Faded a little bit, was hurt some in September, and so fell short of that goal, but he is capable of carrying this team, and his last few days he's shown signs of that.
Well, some of the superstars that play, they kind of accumulate stats over the course of a season. You know, they're just steady and they get their RBIs, and they'll get 5 home runs a month, end up with, you know, 10 RBIs or 15 RBIs a month. But he is one of those guys that'll go a stretch where he'll hit 200, and then a stretch where you cannot get him out, and he's in one of those stretches now, the latter stretch.
And the thing about Beltran is, while he's putting on that kind of show offensively, he's also giving you Gold Glove caliber defense, and that's the rarity. A guy who can help you in every phase of the game. 2-2 to Bard, fouled away.
Well, the Mets are lucky. They have a couple of players like that, and Reyes at shortstop and Beltran in center field that are just, you know, they don't take their at-bats out to the field. There's Reyes and that smile. And, you know, for a former pitcher, I just love when a guy wants to go out there, and if he's having a bad night offensively, he wants to not only help his pitcher, help his team win, but even get angry. There's David Wright, another one, but get angry and want to take hits away from the opposing team. That's what those two guys can do.
Bard goes down swinging, and that is strikeout number 3 for John Maine.
Well, it's hard enough to hit Johnny with with 2 hands, but this time Bard, in this bad weather, loses control of the bat, and you see how he lost it. He's held onto it with his left hand.
So 2 out and nobody on, and the pitcher Chris Young, who singled to center and scored the Padres' lone run in the 3rd. That's been about the only bright spot for Young tonight. Chris Cotter hairstyle in the San Diego dugout.
Without the gel.
1-1 to Young.
He's trying to go for the Eric Burns Award with that crazy hairdo.
Actually, didn't Burns go short?
Yeah, he did. He cut it off. Well, he has enough to afford a barber now with that new contract.
And he's got a TV deal now.
Oh, boy,
1-2 to Young. Hit on the ground to Castillo. And John Maine, who needed a 1-2-3 inning, gets exactly that as he sets down the Padres quickly. We go to the bottom of the 4th. The Mets with a 3-run lead.
92 miles per hour.
What you'd like to see more or less of on our broadcast. So let us know at sny.tv. Reply to Ask the Booth and tell us what you want to see more or less of.
Well,
try to keep it clean. Moises Alou leads off and lines a broken bat hit into left center, and now Alou is 2 for 2. And the Mets have the leadoff man on for the 3rd straight inning against Chris Young.
Well, another fastball supposed to be away, ends up right down the middle. A little quick was Moises Alou, but we know how strong he is. Even with a cracked bat, able to get that in the outfield.
Well, the Reds scored 5 in the 3rd to knock out JoJo Reyes and then outlead the Braves 5-3. They've not quite updated the board yet, but the Phillies have gained the lead on the Dodgers 4-3 on an Aaron Rowan home run. That game's in the bottom of the 4th. Here's Millage, who hit into a double play his first time up, and he drives one deep to left center field. Bradley chasing back near the wall, and he makes the catch. Well, that ball died as it got to the edge of the warning track, and Bradley able to make the play for the first out.
I believe this ball got in on him a little bit. Just did not get it on the good part of the bat. Bradley makes a fine catch on that. That leg looks pretty healed with that nice play to left center. Let me see where that ball hits on contact. Yeah, it looks like he might have got it off the end, not inside.
So 1 out and 1 on, and now Mike DeFelice, who struck out his first time up. Mets with 4 runs and 5 hits over the first 3 1/3 against Chris Young, who came into the night leading the major leagues in earned run average. And you know, the Mets missed Young the first time around in the series in San Diego, and there's every possibility the Mets might see the Padres when they get to the postseason. And on paper, you'd have to say that the Padres, if they do get there, will have one of the most imposing 1-2 punches in Jake Peavy and Chris Young going into the postseason. And I would think that it has to do wonders for the Mets getting to Young in this spot, just in case they see San Diego in October.
Yeah, Young is certainly not on top of his game, but I will tell you that it does give you confidence when you're facing a good pitcher. You have success against him, as the Mets are having tonight early in this game.
One and 2 to DeFelice. Well, Young has not benefited from great run support this year because the Padres just don't score a lot. In fact, he has the 3rd lowest run support of any starter in the league. He's 9 and 4. He could easily be 16 or 17 and 4. That's how good he's been. DeFelice watches the slider. 2 and 2. There you see what he's done in his wins, 0.88. In his no decisions, 1.43, and then in the 4 losses, and obviously not as well in those starts.
You know, something to be said about, though, pitching in this kind of environment and climate tonight. He's a slider pitcher, hard to control that slider.
Struck him out. Good high fastball. Gets DeFelice. 3rd strikeout for Young.
And you know, when you pitch half of your games, his fastball throws right by Mike DeFelice. When you pitch half your starts every year in perfect weather, the same weather every single time, makes it a lot easier. And the only thing I can equate it to is maybe the career of Elway and Marino. You know, that Elway might not have had the numbers of Marino, but Marino never had to play in Denver.
1-0 to John Maine. But I will say this.
Yeah.
He did pitch at Princeton, which means he pitched in the same league you did, and you know how bad the weather is in the Ivy League.
So far south of New Haven, the weather's great there.
Taken high, 2-0. Well, actually, I'm looking forward. Seton Hall's playing Princeton in basketball this year, so we get to go to Jadwin Gym.
Nice.
Which is where Chris Young plied his trade. He was a terrific center. He was 6'10". He played, you know, on the perimeter in that Pete Carrill offense. He could pass it. He could shoot it.
Do you think he made a couple of bounce passes to some backdoor cuts in his time at Princeton?
He certainly did. He really was. I never saw him pitch in college, but I saw him play plenty of basketball, and he was awfully good. 2-2 to Maine.
Well, he had to make a mockery of that Ivy League. There's no one that big playing in the Ivy League as far as pitching.
Maine down swinging. Back-to-back strikeouts for Young. He's got 4 for the night. Mets get another hit against him, but the Padres still down 4-1 with the top of the batting order coming up.
Well, that's the name of the game as a starting pitcher. You got to scratch out those wins, if not for yourself, then pitch well enough for your team to win when you don't feel you have your best stuff. But Maine doing a little better job, although still getting high pitch count. Had a nice inning last time.
Going for his 14th win tonight on the 21st of August. Brian Giles takes low. Giles has taken a call 3rd strike and drawn a walk tonight. 0 for 1.
You know, Gary, with 20 wins becoming such a rarity in the National League, 15 seems to be the benchmark for quality, good pitching in the National League. And, you know, Johnny Maine's going after that. It's an incredible year.
Well, last year, nobody won more than 16 in the league, which was stunning. Past the mound, Castillo shuffling to his right, makes that quick sidearm throw that he's so adept at. And Giles retired 1 away. Time for a City Baseball Night in New York update. Let's go to the studio and Matty Alloff.
All right, thanks a lot, Gary. It's the Reds hosting the Braves, and the Braves were up 3-0. And here come the Reds. Jorge Cantu with a double, 2-run score. It's put a part of a 5-run third. It's 5-3 Cincinnati in the top of the 5th.
Jorge Cantu, a couple of years ago, was an untouchable player at Tampa Bay. The Reds got him for nothing and just called him up yesterday. And he has a big hit in that game as you look at the standings in the NL East. Cracked to center field by Jeff Blum, and Beltran over. And quickly, Maine has 2 outs in the top of the 5th. So Blum is now 0 for 3.
Interesting for the Padres. You can see one of the reasons they don't score a lot, don't really work the count a great deal. Have a lot of guys that hit a lot of fly balls but don't have a lot of power.
And they strike out a lot as a team. They're very happy to have Milton Bradley back in the lineup tonight. Bradley, when he's been able to play, has really given the Padres lineup a spark. And tonight, first start since August 3rd, he has a walk and an RBI single. And Bradley takes a strike, 1-1. Maine getting into a rhythm now.
Oh, if Angel Hernandez will start calling some strikes, he could really get in a rhythm. But he's working a lot quicker than he was early in the game, and I like when John works quick.
So do his fielders in this weather. Off the outside corner, and it's 3-1.
Look at that. See his breath on August 21st. Highly unusual.
Ball 4, and Bradley's on for the 3rd straight time, and he's not all that excited about Angel Hernandez strike zone right now. The most outrageous family on television is coming to the CW11 this fall. Get ready for Family Guy, the hilarious hit that keeps critics raving and viewers coming back for more. Family Guy, weeknights this September on the CW11. So the walks continuing to pile up for Maine. That's his 4th of the night. And Adrian Gonzalez up. Gonzalez has struck out and flied to pretty deep left field. And he takes ball 1.
You know, we've seen Maine in the past, though, on nights like these, see the 90 pitches. He's been able, let's say that at bat to Bradley. The wind's blowing in. Bradley, who's got power, but is not a power hitter. That's a good time that you have to have the ability to throw the ball away from the hitter, let him hit it to the big part of the park, and take your chances. Now you put yourself in a position to have to face the Padres' best offensive threat, Gonzalez, with a man on.
And now he's behind Gonzalez 2-0 with Mike Cameron waiting on deck. Another rainy night at Shea. Maine's already gotten himself a rain-shortened win this year. Right to number 1, and it's 2-1 to Gonzalez.
Well, the changeup he's throwing is a great changeup. If the count was 0-2 and 1-2, it's down in the dirt, but it's not good early in the count.
Popped foul, backing out of play. So Maine going back to the fastball for 2 straight pitches to Gonzalez, and we haven't seen a lot of that tonight.
No, he's not used his fastball as he has in the past, and maybe that's because of the lack of success in the second half. Maybe he's trying to change it up a little bit and include more of his breaking pitches.
And that fastball is down in velocity a little bit, much as we've made note of with Oliver Perez. But Perez was able to battle through it in his last start in Washington after a stern talking to from Willie Randolph. 2-2 pitch, pulled foul.
Well, Maine and Perez are very similar in that way, is that their best pitch is their fastball, and a lot of times when you don't even see it on the board, but it's down in velocity because you can feel it 2 ways. One, when you throw it, you know you don't have as much zip, and the hitters are letting you know it. Every time you throw it in the strike zone, they're not swinging through it, they're fouling it off or getting base hits.
2-2 now to Adrian Gonzalez. In the air to right center field. Beltran ranging over. Ball's not carrying out there tonight, and Beltran's got it to end the inning. So John Maine puts up his. As he goes to the 3rd time around the Mets batting order, Jose Reyes leads off, and he takes a strike. Reyes is flied to center and popped to short. And with that, his batting average just barely teetering at 300. Reyes pulls one foul. When Reyes is hitting the ball in the air as he has tonight, That's when his batting average and his on-base percentage start to take a downturn.
And it's not that he has an uppercut as much as that he's out front a lot.
Curveball gets him. Big slow hook by Young, and that's his 3rd consecutive strikeout, his 5th of the night.
Well, this is why coming into this game that he had 125 strikeouts to Young. Look at that curveball, 12 for 6.
So 1 out, and here's Luis Castillo, who's been up twice, walked twice, scored 2 runs. Not the pitching line that Chris Young's been accustomed to this year. As Castillo pops one up. Green angling over, and he runs this one down, and quickly there are 2 away. This is Chris Young's 23rd start. In 10 of the first 22, he allowed no runs. I mean, and he's only got 9 wins for the season.
Yeah.
So he's obviously been unlucky, but he's also been very, very good. And the Mets, led by Carlos Beltran, have been able to pop him tonight. Here's David Wright, who's taken a called 3rd strike and popped up to first base. David had a streak coming into tonight of reaching base safely at least twice in each of the last 10 games. The longest such streak in Mets history is 12. By John Stearns, of all people, in 1977. You see the other Mets who've had double-digit consecutive games reaching base more than once. Derek Bell, that had to be in April of 2000, without even looking at it. Bell, the 1 year he played with the Mets, got off to a phenomenal start the first month of the season. Didn't do much the rest of the way, but he did lead the league in fashion.
Oh, he did.
Derek Bell never wore an outfit more than once, and then gave his clothes away. He also lived on a boat in the World's Fair Marina.
Well, that's his problem. See, in April, there's not many boats out there in the water, so you don't have as big a wake.
Wright lifts it to the line and right, and Giles across the line to make a nice play and end the inning. So Chris Young has his first 1-2-3 inning of the night. Good play by Giles. 5 in the books at Shea. 4-1 New York. It is certainly not a comfortable night to be in the ballpark, but when you're a kid and you get to go to a ball game, you just don't care.
Well, our producer, Greg Picker, I know he loves those 2 little boys, Max and Jake.
6th inning, and Mike Cameron leads off against John Maine. Cameron has flied deep to center and drawn a walk 0 for 1. Well, you knew there were going to be a lot of runs scored in Cincinnati tonight, right? 5th inning, Andrew Jones 2-run triple, Brian McCann 2-run homer, 7-5 Atlanta.
McCann hit a grand slam in last night's ball game, didn't he?
First inning. 1-1 to Cameron, and he lays off the slider, and it's 2-1.
Who was the left-hander that signed with Cincinnati? He came from Philadelphia, signed a big contract. Milton, right?
Eric Milton.
And I remember reading that and I don't know Eric Milton. Never met Eric Milton, but I felt bad for Eric Milton when he signed that contract because he's a fly ball pitcher in a home run park.
And that's exactly the way it worked out.
Yeah.
He was a home run pitcher. I went into the Padres clubhouse today to talk to Mike Cameron. It's very hard to have a conversation with Mike Cameron because everybody wants to have a conversation with Mike Cameron. Every one of his teammates as they walked in, trainers, coaches, clubhouse attendants, writers, broadcasters. He is the most popular guy in any clubhouse he inhabits.
Drives it to deep left field. Back goes Alou near the wall, and it's out of here. Mike Cameron with his 16th home run of the year, and it cuts the Mets lead to 4-2.
So Cameron, who once had a 30 home run season as a Met, now has his 16th home run of the year for the Padres, and he hits one against the Mets.
And getting more popular by the second is Mike Cameron.
Only on that side of the field.
Yeah, I think this was a high changeup from John Maine. Doesn't throw many changeups to right-handers. No, fastball up. You can see the way that Mike DeFelice's reaction. Wanted that pitch up, but when you want that pitch up, you want it head high. And that was about chest high, right where Cameron likes that fastball.
1-1 to Green. And he swings through the fastball 1-2.
You know why pitchers make mistakes with that high fastball? When the catcher calls for it, he wants it head high, because you never throw it. You never work on it.
And Green down swinging. That's the 4th strikeout for John Maine.
You know, when you are, as you see that home run going through the weather, and you knew that was going to be a home run as soon as it hit the bat. Just a line drive out of here in a heartbeat. When you're working on the side, you're working on your sliders down, your changeups down, and never working that high fastball.
In 2007, Hyundai, the Mets, and SNY are teaming up to strike out cancer. For every K the Mets pitching staff registers, Hyundai, the Mets, and SNY will make a donation to the Hope and Heroes Children's Cancer Fund. If you want to help, please go to www.hopeandheroes.org. Cue shot down to first base. Delgado plays the spinner off Kuzminov's bat, and that's the second out. So 2 out and nobody on after the Cameron home run. Let's check in with Kevin Burkhardt. Kevin?
You know, guys, before the year, Sandy Alomar Sr. Told Jose Reyes that their goal was to win the Gold Glove. And he said, look, it's going to take a lot of sacrifice and a lot of work, but if you're up for it, that's what we'll do. And so every day, Sandy Alomar Jr., or Sr., I should say, has been working with Reyes on just that, trying to win the Gold Glove. And obviously, they've taken it very seriously. And I said, what's been the difference with Jose this year? And you know what? He told me a couple of things. First of all, focus and understanding of what it takes to be a better defensive fielder. And he said he's also, in these everyday sessions, been working on some different things. Ground balls with Jose every day, but trying to work on quality, not quantity. Things such as improving on moving to his backhand and coming into the ball. He said those are the things that he really needed to work on. And guys, obviously the results have shown, and Sandy's a pretty proud guy about it.
Sandy Alomar Sr.'s favorite word is awareness when it comes to baseball. 1-2 to Josh Bard.
Awareness means that you are on top of your game. It's almost like when you're driving a car. The better drivers are the ones that are aware of everything around them. The better baseball players, especially shortstops, are one aware of every single situation that might come up.
Slider in the dirt to Bard, and it's 2-2. Clay Hensley is up in the San Diego bullpen. Scott Schoenweiss getting ready on the Mets side, as Maine is now up to 110 pitches on the night. So this figures to be his final go-round. Trying to finish with a flourish as Bard lays off, and it's 3-2. Marcus Giles out on the on-deck circle, a potential pinch hitter. 3-2 to Bard, and he drives one deep to right field. That'll get to the wall on one hop. Bard heads to second, and he's in standing with a 2-out double. So Maine unable to seal the deal here in the 6th, and that'll get the tying run to the plate.
Well, this pitch down on Bard as he lines that to right field. Good job by Milledge getting that in, but with 2 outs here, if you're going to have some damage, you want it with 2 outs, a chance to get out of this inning as Rick Peterson comes out to talk to John Maine. Not cold, but it feels cold because of the weather we've had in August. Very warm.
Marcus Giles has had such a bad year, he's lost his regular second base job. One-time star with Atlanta, now reduced to a pinch hitting role. Since the 9th of May, Marcus is hitting 180. Who would have thought it? But Maine falls behind him 2-0. Giles was such a pain in the Mets side throughout his tenure in Atlanta. And that misses away, and it's 3-0.
You know, it's interesting. Just like hitters who or players that go back home to where they live, that's not always paradise, going home and playing where you live. Maybe it's tough playing with your brother.
and playing where you grew up.
Yeah.
Which is the case, both the case for Marcus, who joined his brother Brian in San Diego. Brian has thrived lately. He's on deck. But Marcus's game has really suffered. 3-1 to Marcus Giles, and he swings through the slider, 3-2. He's got that big long swing for a little guy.
Yeah, he does. And right here, looking fastball, completely fooled by the 3-1 slider. Interesting if Maine throws another one on the 3-2 count.
Line to left field, coming in now. Lou can't get it. It goes behind him to the wall. Bard scores. Marcus Giles digging for second. He'll turn there, try for 3. Reyes with the relay throw, not in time. A pinch hit triple for Marcus Giles, and it gets the Padres within a run. It's 4-3 New York. Now Lou made the effort to try and make the diving grab, but couldn't get it on the wet track.
Well, I think that's the key, is it's a wet track. He just did not get a great jump on it, and then when he tried to go into his dive, his feet kind of slipped out from him. You can see his head bobbed, made it impossible to make that play. Bard, of course, scores easy from second base, and Marcus Giles turns it on here to turn it into a triple, a home run, a double, and a triple in this inning off John Maine.
And that's the end of the line for John Maine. He'll leave. Scott Schoenweiss will come on. This call to the bullpen brought to you by Verizon. Switch to Verizon Fios, TV, internet, phone. After a pinch hit triple. Bryant tonight 0 for 2 and a walk. And 0 for 2 in his career against Scott Schoenweiss. So the Mets had a 4-1 lead, but a home run by Mike Cameron, an RBI triple by Marcus Giles, and the Padres 90 feet away from tying the game. And Giles takes a strike. John Maine ended up throwing 118 pitches over 5 2/3. That's 117 in 5 innings last time. 118 in 5 2/3 this time, as the Reds, Brandon Phillips with a home run, have tied up the Braves 7-7. Now it's 0-2 to Brian Giles.
Look at the year Brandon Phillips is having. The Mets have seen him firsthand, kind of year he's having.
23 home runs for Phillips.
Good change up there from Schoenweiss.
Now ahead on Giles, 0-2.
Breaking ball in there for a call, strike 3. Schoenweiss gets Brian Giles looking to strand the tying run at third. The Padres get 2 to make it a 1-run game. Cameron with a home run against his old team, and Marcus Giles with a pinch hit RBI triple. That's with a 4-3 lead as we go to the bottom of the 6th.
Maybe Willie Randolph getting a little bit more confidence in Schoenweiss. He brought him in a big spot in Pittsburgh. He threw exactly 1 pitch, but got the out, although it was an out at the warning track. And he threw that pitch not in his own shoes. You see, his spikes were left in New York at that time, so he had to look around for someone who had the same shoe size. That happened to be Oliver Perez. So Oliver Perez lent him his shoes. Schoenweiss pitched and got that out in Perez's shoes. But he said, you know what, I'm not a superstitious guy. I'm going back to my normal shoes. I said, what happens if Oliver Perez doesn't have the same size shoe as you? He says, I'd probably throw that pitch pretty uncomfortably. Back upstairs, Gary and Ron, guys.
All right, Kevin. Lefty Justin Hampson on in relief for San Diego. Carlos Beltran already with 4 RBIs tonight with a homer and a double. And he drives one foul in his first right-handed at bat of the night. Did a nice job batting left-handed, I would say.
Well, Bud Black wants to turn him around because of these 2 swings. Home run to left field. Nice catch out there in the bleachers. And then in the 3rd inning, got similar pitch, and this time just drove the ball over the head of Brian Giles to score another couple Met runs.
Takes inside from Hampson. Justin Hampson was in the Colorado organization. The Padres got him on waivers after last season. He's had some elbow problems this season. Now he's behind on Beltran, 3-1. And they've got the side-arming righty Clay Meredith up in the Padres bullpen now. The Padres still have the best bullpen numbers in the league. As Beltran draws a walk to lead off in the bottom of the 6th. but that bullpen has been struggling a bit since the All-Star break. Time to check in for a baseball night in New York update, and Matt Yellow.
All right, thanks a lot, Gary. Dodgers and Phillies. It was 3-2 Dodgers until Aaron Rowan gets down to business, hits his 21st home run. Phillies are up 5-3, but Cole Hamels is going to miss tomorrow's start with a mild medial elbow strain. That is huge news for those Phillies trying to keep pace, Gary.
That is about the worst news that the Phillies could get right now, is that something's wrong with Cole Hamels. Blum with the play to second. Green with no chance for the relay as Delgado gets aboard. 4-6 on the fielder's choice, erasing Beltran for the first down. They'll bring up Moises Alou, and it looks like they'll bring in the right-hander to face Moises, with the side armor Clay Meredith up in the bullpen. Bud Black out to the mound. So Hampson issued the leadoff walk to Beltran, got the force play from Delgado, and now Meredith will come on to relieve him. Third pitcher of the night coming in for San Diego. The Mets up 4-3 in the 6th.
Well, Clay Meredith, who has struggled a little more this year. This is his 61st game, because last year he was just unbelievable. 1.07 ERA in 45 games. That's Clay Meredith.
He was part of that trade with Boston last year, as Alou hits a double play grinder to Green, makes the flip to Blum. One pitch thrown by Meredith, and a 6-4-3 double play ends the inning. On to the 7th we go. 4-3 New York.